last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. A new survey reveals that 11% of Americans have been falsely accused of abuse. Out of the 10,000 respondents, 81% of the falsely accused were male and 70% of false accusers are female. And in New Mexico, only one report of child abuse in every 20 made to the hotline is ever substantiated. In Florida this week, DCF misses every opportunity to save a 13-month-old who was beaten to death by his mother's boyfriend. Governor Rick Scott signs legislation requiring the drug testing of welfare recipients. And Michigan shoots for more hungry kids as it considers drug testing welfare recipients as well. A state senator from Michigan introduces a bill that would make court orders for the removal of children mandatory except in cases of imminent risk. Washington, D.C. holds a celebration in honor of families who have reunited with their children. Two of Kentucky's largest newspapers are fighting for access to public records in regards to child abuse deaths and injuries. A California judge orders the state to give foster parents a raise. And the state moves to close down a Hollywood adoption agency. Although Ohio is bragging about a steady drop in the number of kids in foster care in the state, they're still crying about a severe shortage of foster homes, thus forcing the state to seek the services of much more expensive private agencies. Minnesota Representative Michelle Bachmann accuses Planned Parenthood of turning a blind eye to the trafficking of young girls and unspecified crimes that were so disgusting that she could not articulate them. The state of Georgia steals Social Security benefits from foster children, and Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts introduces a bill that would prohibit states like Georgia from keeping the foster kids' money. Proposed legislation by California Representative Pete Stark, which bans discrimination in adoption proceedings based on sexual orientation, as it turns out, would ban Catholic adoption agencies who choose to deal only with married heterosexual couples. The number of foster children in the USA is down 22% over the last 10 years, and Rhode Island tries to get out of a children's rights lawsuit. In New Zealand this week, a foster couple is charged with scrubbing the bodies and teeth of boys in their care with wire brushes. And due to a severe baby shortage, the desperate to adopt from New Zealand are forced to look overseas. Nigerian police bust up a baby factory where teenage girls were forced to have babies that were then to be sold on the black market. And a 2-year-old boy from Thailand dies after being raped by the transvestite who adopted him. China celebrates its second annual National Child Welfare Week, and the number of orphans in China has risen by 24% since 2005. In India, a Hindu family is criticized for adopting a Muslim girl. And in South Africa, 2 babies who were sharing a cot died last Tuesday at an overcrowded foster home. In Australia this week, baby stealers are whining about all the paperwork that they have to do, and they're still unable to investigate claims of abuse or neglect within the 5 days required by policy guidelines. Native Canadians are getting fed up with the child protective industry this week, as a class action lawsuit is filed against Ottawa on behalf of the thousands of Aboriginal children who were snatched from their homes and thrown into residential schools. The Six Nations tribes hold a protest against the Ontario Children's Aid Society's practice of snatching Aboriginal kids and spreading them across the province. And a group of 50 child protection workers from CAS hold a protest against heavy caseloads. A former foster family questions Alberta's commitment to helping children after a lack of support, training, and resources put 2 of their foster and all of their biological kids at risk. A mother from Alberta wants to know why her 4-month-old baby died 6 days after being put into a foster home. And although we do wish her good luck in her quest for answers, it is without high hopes, as the mother of Samantha Martin still fights for answers as to why her 13-year-old daughter died in a foster home 5 years ago. In England this week, the grandmother of baby P tells former head of the agency that failed him that she should give the money that she won in an appeal over her sacking to charity. British child protection workers couldn't tell that one of their foster parents was a pedophile, and a survey of social workers reveals that many of them don't have enough people skills to do the job. British mother is reunited with the son who she was forced to give up for adoption 57 years ago. A social worker who was banned from practicing for making sexually inappropriate comments during a night out gets his license back after an appeal. And another social worker gets suspended for staring at a girl's boobs. In entertainment news this week, Camille Grammer is accused of leaking child custody documents to the media, and Kelsey Grammer offers to let her keep their daughter but wants boss's son. In Plain Sight star Nicole Hiltz was arrested for child neglect. And as it turns out, Arnold Schwarzenegger's love child was a fan of Terminator 2 and idolized the star without even knowing it was his father. In Arizona this week, a family court judge is accused of domestic violence. A California probation officer who also worked as a caseworker for DCFS gets busted for stealing the earnings of homeless youth who entrusted him with their money. In Indiana, a foster father who impregnated his 15-year-old foster daughter has new charges filed against him for molesting another 8-year-old girl in his care. And a foster care provider from Michigan has more charges filed against him regarding the sexual assault of a young girl in his care. In Ohio, a coroner's report reveals that a 7-month-old girl was abused in her foster home, but they can't figure out the exact cause of death. A Louisiana woman gets busted for adoption fraud after taking money from the desperate to adopt for more than a month after having an abortion. In Pennsylvania this week, a pissed-off parent beats a caseworker after being accused of doing drugs. The child protective industry in Washington agrees to pay out $7.3 million to 3 girls who were sexually abused in a foster home. In California, the former foster mother of a little girl who was killed in her care files for bankruptcy. And finally tonight, a Michigan mother fails to seek medical attention for her child out of fear of being reported to Child Protective Services. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.